much for taking time out of your day to do this with me. I want to give a little brief summary on what this is about, the purpose of this, and then I'll give it over to you guys to introduce yourselves. And so you may know, like I am a fan of the Enneagram, but I also am a fan of creativity. And I've recently been interested in exploring the connection between the Enneagram and creativity. And as you all know, like each type has a particular instinct that they see the world through. So the head types, the 5s, 6s, and 7s, see the world through their minds. And the gut types, 8, 9s, and 1s, we see the world through our like intuition, through our gut. And the heart types, 2, 3s, and 4s, which would be you guys, see the world through their emotions. And my theory is that the same way each type sees the world through their instinct, they also connect with creativity through that instinct. And so my hope is to see if that's true and explore what creativity looks like for you guys who are all type 2s, and just to see what that's like. And so that being said, we can get started. I want you guys to go around, introduce yourselves, your name, what art you do, and how long you've been doing it. So anybody can go first.
Siobhan looks like she's ready. Go ahead, Siobhan. You got it, girl.
Okay. My name is Siobhan Seaman, and I am my medium is music and voice. Specifically, like one I've focused in is on worship in the church, as well as I play the keyboard, I sing. So that's kind of my main medium for creativity.
And how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing it since I was a little girl. So probably around maybe 10.
Okay.
8, 9, 10, something like that. Yeah, just for fun, and then it's become my profession.
And you write songs too, though.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
I just wanted to make that clear that like Siobhan Seaman writes original songs.
I do write original songs. Yeah.
Don't forget, you're in a chat with 2, so there's gonna be a lot of humility in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had to use my 8 wing to pull it out.
Yeah. Recently, I was at a retreat and I got to write some songs with the denomination, the Christian Missionary Alliance, like some worship pastors. So I got to do that recently. It was really good. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's me.
All right.
Awesome. All right, Isaiah, since you volunteered, Siobhan, you get to go
next. That sounds like something the coolest guy in the world would do. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So my name is Isaiah Velez. I am currently a youth and young adults pastor at a church in New City, New York. But my medium of creativity is writing, is rapping, is music, is also story. So that's why I like to say writing is pretty general. And I'd say I've been writing for a long time, since I was in grade school, but rap and music, I started to pick up more around like 2012, 2013. So it's been some time now that I've been doing music.
Cool. All right. Glad to hear that. Yeah. And looking forward to some, and you know, Isaiah dropped an album, and what was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2017. I dropped an album. 3 years ago,
and now, you know, we're looking forward to 36 hours, and now we're looking forward to some new stuff in the future, hopefully.
Yes, sir.
All right. And Paul, last but not least.
My name is Paul Garcia. I am a children's worship pastor at a church also in New City, New York. It's a weird
question. Wow, really?
We should
connect.
Connect, yeah, it makes sense. I primarily my medium for creativity is music as well. I do a lot of singing and guitar. I love piano. I'm not very good at it, but I do like playing on the piano and messing around a little bit. I also love to write, but writing is something that I have not used as a creative outlet for a while, but it is something that I really do love.
Cool. All right. I just want to just put a shout out there. Paul said he's not very good at the piano, but he sent me a video of him completing my Disney challenge and playing and singing How Far I'll Go. And I would not have guessed that he didn't play the piano. It was quite
if
impressive.
people that play the piano, they're like, oh yeah, he does not play the piano.
Shut
Don't
up.
play your
I mean, like,
wow, okay, like it
you
sounds.
can pull it off. You can definitely. I mean, I would not have guessed that. Like, this guy generally just like is faking it. Like, anyway, I just thought that was really. But anyway, that being said, let's move on to the questions for you guys. First up, now that you've introduced us to your art, what does your creative process look like when you are creating your art? And we can follow the same order. We can go with Siobhan first.
Sure. So my creative process is very interesting because I don't know if this plays a part in this, but as a 2, for some reason, I think that I attribute this to being a 2. Like, I'm a 2-wing 3, so I'm like a, the servant, I guess. But then I also am achiever. So like, there's what gets in the way, or like it takes me a while because like it needs to have a result, and I also struggle to identify my needs. So like my creative process takes a bit of time and intentionality. Like I literally have to make room for me to do it because I don't always see it as valuable outwardly. And so I have to intentionally I do it honestly sometimes because I have to. Like I have to make room to do it. And I know it's good for my soul. And eventually when even a lot of my creativity is motivated by an outcome, like for preparation for a Sunday set or if it's with someone else, like that's what it begins like. But I don't know if does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm getting an idea of what you, like you said, you're motivated by like an outcome and by having a result. And sometimes you feel like you it almost sounds like sometimes you have to force yourself into this creative process.
Yeah, it's a different choice.
Do you have any like rituals or habits that you do to kind of get you into the zone? Like when you're playing a song, for example, on that retreat?
Yeah. So it's prayer usually. Like I have to literally be like, Lord, help me I welcome you to help me in this time. Like, and it's really just a decision. So if I say anything that would warm me up is like being in the Word or like talking to the Lord, prayer, like, and worship. So that's how it begins for me.
Nice. Isaiah?
Yeah, I can definitely relate to Siobhan. I myself am also a 2-wing 3. And I was trying to bounce some of these questions off of the mind of my wife Francesca, and I was like, do you think I have a process? And she was like, no, you don't have a process. And I don't think I do. If I'm honest, like it doesn't look the same ever. It's kind of like I will be inspired by life circumstances, and I think my process is processing. So I kind of won't have fuel in the tank if I'm not living life. And that's not just good stuff. It can be bad stuff too. So I think music and writing has become a place where I meet the Lord to process the hills and valleys of life. And so I guess what prompts me is whatever I'm going through, whatever the season may look like. But then when it comes to actually making time, like Siobhan was mentioning, I have to fight myself to make sure that I set apart time for myself in that. And that can sometimes be a little bit of a struggle. And I think more recently, I've been living an inverted life when it comes to Enneagram, and the 3 come first before the 2. And I get more concerned about results, like Siobhan was saying. And sometimes creative sessions don't come with results. And I don't know if I like that sometimes. So I fight myself because of those reasons. But that's kind of a little glimpse into my process.
Cool. Did you, I don't know if you did say it in there, but do you have any like rituals or habits? Like I know it like you said, the process is kind of like not really tangible, but like do you ever find yourself, like it might change each time, but do you ever find yourself like particular rituals or habits that help you?
For sure. I think again, legitimately scheduling time to just be is kind of exactly what starts to get the thoughts flowing and the process started. So that looks like tons of different things, but I will start off by legit on my calendar being like, all right, creative time.
Yeah.
Like, and then just sitting in that. So that's definitely something.
Interesting. Paul?
These answers are going to be like pretty similar because so start off with the ritual. I always start off alone. I haven't done a lot of like collaborative creative stuff. I really like to get like pretty isolated, like as far isolated as I can get. You know, I like the idea of just being able to kind of pour out without having to worry about, because if I feel like someone's listening to me, it very much affects the outcome and the process. And, you know, I get much more, you know, like wanting to do good rather than just like putting it out.
Yeah.
So I try to get very isolated. And from there, I like to get inspired. So I'll like Siobhan, you know, I'll listen to something, or I'll try to, you know, depending on what I want to do, you know, if I'm wanting to like, you know, like practice a song, or maybe just like learn a song, you know, I'll just listen to it a few times and kind of play. And, but if I'm trying to write something, you know, the best process for me is just to kind of throw as much as I can out, you know, just kind of try to, you know, not worry about what the outcome is, because I'm very, very critical of everything that I produce. You know, like even, you know, I'll look back at, you know, past sermons I've done, or, you know, like even papers in seminary and stuff like that. And I just like, I can barely read them. I just like, I hate kind of like 90% of the things that I've done. So it's hard for me to not get really critical. So the most important thing for me is to just to like keep going, just go, just push, just don't worry about what's going. And that's when I feel like it comes out the best out of me. I'm not saying it's like, oh, I'm creating like this incredible stuff, but you know, the process of like, just don't worry about it, just sit down, just play, you know, just find, you know, find a chord progression, you know, or something like that. And so I like doing that. And then I like also kind of, I like trying to be unique and try to find, you know, different sounds. So I'll just kind of play around sometimes with just like, you know, one particular phrase or something like that for a little while, just to try to find something that seems unique or different.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
So a common theme that I'm seeing in all three of you is that you guys can sometimes the results can be whatever I'm looking for. Like you can sometimes be motivated by the results, and that can actually be detrimental sometimes to your creative process. And also seeing that like a few of you said that you have to like force yourself to actually schedule this in. Like it isn't like if you don't schedule it in, it's not going to happen. Like it doesn't just.
Yeah, that's true for me as well. I have to be really, really intentional about it, or it doesn't happen.
That's cool. All right. So next question. Do you feel more connected with your creativity through your heart and your emotions, or through your body or your head, like looking at the other instincts that each of the types have? Like do you feel connected to your creativity through your emotions, your head, or your body?
So I would say that definitely heart and emotions, but then oddly enough, my body.
Yeah.
So that order. Because the way I lead worship, and not that my head is not a part of the process, but the way I lead worship is very physical. Like I'm very expressive with my worship. And the reason being is that I'm making a decision to align my whole self with the worship and with the word. And like, it's just part of my process. It's something that like I've seen other ministers do. And I love joy and I love dancing. And so like, it's very much a natural part. So that's how I feel I'm connected to, like when I start creating or start writing, I I move around, and it all kind of helps me align into the process of creativity. So,
and I've definitely seen that in you, like you physically moving and jumping, or so, but you said like, so the order would be like you connect with your creativity through your emotions and then your body. And so with the body, that's you physically moving while you're leading worship. What does it look like for you to lead with your emotions? Like, how do you connect with your creativity through your emotions first?
So, like I could see it. It starts with like intimate worship with the Lord. Like I'm a flower. That's how I write songs. So songs come out of worship typically. So like emotionally, like I'm like centering myself with the Lord and just going after, like pressing in and like just repeating a phrase or just worshiping, and like I'm just connecting my heart to, or my emotions to like to my love of the Lord. Like that's typically how that happens. And then also sometimes in worship or in creativity, like something will tap into, we'll just tap into something deeper that will release like joy or sadness, grief, usually a lot of grief or joy, not a lot of anger. Sometimes like pressing in will reflect in like more aggressive, but I wouldn't call it anger. I'm only angry if it's like creativity is when it's like I feel like I'm being opposed by like
by someone else,
enemy, or like I'm sensing like it's like demonic in nature or something heavy. Again, it's usually like when I'm fighting for someone or fighting for breakthrough or fighting, like that's when it unlocks, like maybe that's when you'll hear anger. But typically, like I go from joy to sadness, or typically emotionally. So.
That's really cool. So that's so you mentioned joy, sadness, grief, and so it sounds like these are like emotions that are kind of like, I guess, like guiding you through your creative process, or through. It's almost like it sounds like. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's usually like I would say it's like a decision. I guess like it's a heart thing, it's a head thing that starts it, and then it becomes emotion. And then like along the way, it's the body that comes into play. So
that's a cool way of putting it. What about you, Isaiah?
Well, I think, like I was telling you earlier about sometimes living an inverted life with the 3-2, I can have a tendency to be more heady than hearty. But when I'm raw, like I'm really just being all of myself, and I kind of get back to the core of who I am and becoming comfortable with who God is forming me into every day. I would say that because I'm inspired by life, and life is something that I try not to go through in a compartmentalized way, but rather holistically. I'd say that the creative process touches all four of those, you know, the heart and the emotions, but also the body and the mind. But most is the heart and the emotions, for sure. But just to touch on the other ones quickly, I think I get inspired by moving. I'm someone who, if I have to sit still, it can be hard for me to be creative. Even when I'm jotting a song or writing a story, I walk around, might talk it out loud a little bit. That helps me to process it, to chew on it. And then I think with heady, I think there could be something from just a notion or an idea I've learned in a class, or a theological claim that will inspire creativity. I think the brain can help me to analyze the box that I then can think outside of. And so I think that the head is very important as well. But then when it comes to the way I'm relaying what I'm sharing or what I'm creating, it's definitely a hearty emotional process. My emotions are on full display. And I think I've grown in my music over the past couple of years. I think because of just the caliber of life raising, and there being so many new circumstances and situations, being married, all these different things. I've gone from being someone who writes music about my emotions to being someone who invites others to hear my music and therefore feel what I am feeling. And that's kind of like something I think I'm proud of, because to explain my emotions feels more heady, but what is natural is to just be where I'm at and to be okay with being where I'm at in the process. And so that's, so that's what I'd say. I'd say that's how the emotions in the heart are like at the core of my creativity.
Interesting. That's cool. Siobhan mentioned that like joy, grief, and sadness are kind of like the creative tour guides that like lead her through her process. Are you able to identify, are there any particular emotions like in particular that come up in your creative process often?
Yeah, I'm sort of a melancholic individual, so I'm the type of guy who often is talking about what makes me sad or frustrated and grieving. Probably to a fault, you know, I can romanticize that a little bit. But at the same time, I do have some songs that are joyful, but if I'm gonna make a song that's joyful or write something that's joyful, because I want to be authentic, it's about the battle to getting to that place more than just being like happy. Like I'm not gonna make a Pharrell happy song. Like that's just not that's not how my creativity flows out. But so it's like fighting to get to joy, or fighting to get to gratitude, or fighting to get to peace. And kind of what I have to let go of in order to accept what the Lord is giving me.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. Paul?
I always start in the heart. I'll always like something will like stir in me. You know, I'll have an emotional response to either something I've seen or heard, or you know, a situation. You know, the Lord might be speaking something to me, and I you know, I'll react emotionally to that, and that will make me want to then go create. Once I'm in the creative process, I definitely am still driven, you know, by the emotion, but I get very much in my head when I'm creating. I definitely go to a head place. I'm very much like thinking about like, you know, like structure, or you know, like if it's like a song or something like that, you know, I'm thinking a lot about key and you know, like, you know, what works best here, and progressions, and you know, or phrasing, you know, how phrase you know, might need to work in something like. So I very much get into a headspace when I'm creating, but it all starts, and I think it's primarily driven from the heart.
Interesting. So just like I asked the Isaiah and Siobhan, are you able to identify particular emotions that come up as like recurring tour guides in the creative process?
I think any extreme of an emotion is what drives me, you know. It's just like a regular day, then you know, I'm probably not inspired to, you know, I'm just like, you know, like today's a nice day out, you know, I'm probably not gonna go, you know, write a story about a nice day, you know. But if it's like like bad is happened, or something really negative, I feel like, you know, like that really pushes me. Or something like on the opposite, like, you know, a lot of joy, you know, like so I think I kind of live in the
extremes.
That's
interesting. That's cool. Okay, that makes sense. I guess that also like fits in with like what Siobhan and Isaiah were saying. Like even the emotions of joy and sadness are both on the opposite ends of the extreme. And like you didn't say something like contentment or gratitude, which seem more like, you know, more mellow emotions. Like, you know, if you're feeling extreme joy, like then that probably will inspire you to write the song. But like if you're extreme sadness, then like I just find that's intriguing.
Yeah,
sure.
So what is one of the biggest obstacles to your creativity, and do you think this is tied to being a type 2? So Siobhan.
Yes.
Now I'm excited. I'm
yes.
more excited to hear this now.
Yes. I think it goes back to what I had said earlier. Like the biggest obstacle to creativity, I would say, is my constant drive for output. Like whether it's because I'm helping or serving, good or bad, healthy, I'm not like, I don't always have pure motives. I don't want to come off like I'm always wanting to serve. I'm not that good at all. But like, I definitely, like, there is a drive to output, and it's really hard. And I would say, like, I could be even my worst enemy in that regard. Because like with creativity, there may never be an agenda for it. There may never be, no one may ever hear it other than the Lord. Like, and I would say, like, and I would say, yes, part of my obstacle is the two-ness, I guess you could say. But then it probably is perfectionism as well. But that also kind of feeds into being a two, like the pride end. You have to have it right. Like even though I'm not a wing one, you know, it's still like there's this drive for accuracy, drive for
like almost like a performance. Like the performance is gonna be critiqued, and like this needs to be top notch. There's an excellence. Like, you know,
yeah. So it's tough. It's really tough because creativity is a gift that's given by the Lord, and it's a gift we give to ourselves to say yes to. And it's a battle for me personally. So
it's like you touched on, you said something that stood out to me. You said something that you said that you're so driven by output, and that can be difficult for your process. And I hear a lot of other creatives talk about it, even if they're not type twos, but this idea that it can be difficult to create just for the sake of creating, like just for fun. Whereas when you have a motivation, like, oh, you have to do this because somebody asked you to write a song, or you have to do this because you're supposed to lead worship or what have you, then like now you're creating, but forgetting that like you can create just to create.
And if I wish I mentioned this earlier, but like I think one of the things, because I'm also because it's about, like, when I'm doing it with people, that's also motive. Like I love collaborating with others, and like that motivates me because I'm doing it with others or for others. And that adds an element of joy and motivation to do it. And not that that's bad, it's really good actually. But I think I think you could tell where my star points true north in that area. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Isaiah, what's an obstacle for you?
You know, it's interesting to hear you say that, Siobhan, because I agree with you. I think because of the two in me, I love to collaborate with others. In fact, I love to, for lack of a better word, I guess, I like to set the stage for others to then come and to join me in the collaborative process. Like, I think when I made my album back in 2017, every song I created and I wanted to feature a part of, it was with the thought process of this person's gonna have to fight to let the Lord in some way, shape, or form in order to get this out. And I love that. I love that dynamic, but I also think that can be a little bit of an obstacle for me as well, because I will find that, like, because I have a project I'm working with someone else on, and it requires intentionality for me to fight to be creative for myself, it's even harder when you add somebody else to the process to make or to step forward in the creative process because of that desire to want to collaborate and stuff. And there not always being schedules meeting up and stuff. So I'd say that can be sometimes an obstacle, but I think my biggest obstacle is myself. I just think I get caught up, like she's saying, about with my output. But then at the same time, I think I have learned how to create for creativity's sake. A lot of what I make is again, like I said, me processing life. So I like to refer to it sometimes as journal entries. And I sometimes will craft something and then like play a beat off of YouTube and then record it on my phone. And then I'll have it on my phone and I might send it to a couple of people, but I'll listen to it in the car for myself. And I'm okay with the creative process ending right there. But the reality is, like, there's more to do. There's recording it officially, then there's mixing, and then there's like mastering it, and then there's releasing it for the whole world to hear and to have involvement with. And I think like I get caught up with the end of the output process sometimes. I get like overwhelmed. And I think what it is exactly what you said, Manny. It's about performance sometimes. And I get like performance anxiety from my own creative process at some point. So that's why sometimes, and I know we're going to get into it with the next question, but setting some time apart to really process why I'm making what I'm making, or why this creativity is something I want to involve myself with, is important. Because if not, then I will end up feeling pressured by the performance part. And so, yeah, that's a big thing for me, obstacle-wise.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. Well, what about you? What are some obstacles?
My biggest obstacle is I'm very self-critical. I don't know if that's the biggest one. That's definitely a big one, though. You know, like I'll come up with an idea to do, you know, something. Like I've got an idea to, like, you know, take a song and, you know, kind of rework the, you know, a song that already exists, kind of rework the words a little bit for like to fit a certain situation, you know. And I'm like, when I come up with the idea at first, I'm like, I love that, I feel that, that's so great. And the more time that passes, the more I'm like, that is a terrible idea. Like, no one's going to care about that. You know, like, I'm not going to spend time on that. So, you know, I can become very self-critical before I even start the process. You know, like I'm one step in and I'm like, I'm good. So that's definitely an obstacle. The other one is you know, making it a priority. And again, yeah, like Isaiah said, we're definitely going to get into this more in the next question. But if I don't make it a priority, it won't come out. Yeah.
Interesting. That's cool. Okay, I'm learning a lot here. It's good stuff. So since you guys have mentioned the next question, what revives your creativity when it dies? And do you think this has to do with you being a type 2? So Siobhan, take it away.
Man, what revives it? I mean, I think it's definitely like the Lord, because something that dawned on me somewhat recently was like, the Lord wants me to use my voice more than I do.
Oh, really?
That's crazy.
That's wow.
Like more than, like, he gave me this gift for a purpose, and not that, like, he loves me, he delights in me, and he made me to impact the world. And so whatever that sphere of influence is, like, that's what it is. And like, so he is the one that revives it. And like, I think people who, like, my community is also who revives it, because they're like, when are you going to get that song out? Or when are you going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm getting there. But yeah, that would be it. And of course, to me, it always goes back to worship. That always, like, that intimacy with the Lord always gets me back to like creativity. Cause like, I'll wake up hearing a song, or I'll hear like a melody line, and I'll like put it in my phone and I'll just record it.
Yeah.
It's his spirit. Really, that's where my creativity best flows out of. Is
good stuff.
So,
yeah. I'm gonna hold on to that line. Like, God wants you to use your voice more than you do. That's quite a reviver there. That's a good.
Yeah. He knows how to quiet us. He knows how to quiet us, and he knows how to release us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Isaiah, what revives your? Sorry about that. What revives your creativity?
I would say it's so funny you asked this question. I really had to look at this for myself when quarantine started. I really had to say, all right, so I have time. Let me look at what really does revive the creativity in me, and ultimately what revives my soul in general. And I think I'm somebody who wrestles with rest. I'm not really good at resting. I don't know if my fellow twos can relate, but I sat with the Lord and really wanted to work through, all right, what are some things that help me rest? And I think that's the answer to the question you're asking. So I think the first thing is paying attention to the Lord and making time to be able to pay attention to him. So that might look like having some time of solitude and silence. Ironically, I'm not the type of person who can just kind of muscle through creativity and then it'll get flowing. It's kind of like I need to rest and hear what it is that he's trying to say and what it is that he's trying to do, and listen for the Spirit. And then that kind of can fill me up. I then also would say taking in things that inspire me or kind of give me life, like movies, shows, conversations with people, sermons. All these things can kind of put the defibrillators to my creativity for sure. I also would say having conversations with people who inspire me, maybe people who chase their dreams a little bit more than I have, or a little bit further down the walk of life, or the faith walk with Jesus. So sometimes talking to P. Mike, for example, or older men who have families, like now in this recent season, what creativity looks like as a husband is different. So speaking to people who I love the way that they love their families and love their wives, and I'm inspired by that. Having conversations with people like that can kind of bring life back to my creativity. And then lastly, I think it's unplugging from places where I feel I have to perform, or where I feel like people need me. And the best picture I have of that is like last year before we got married, we had my bachelor party, and it was 5 days of literally no expectations for Isaiah. It was just be like, Isaiah, just be. We're here. We'll take care of everything. Just be. And I find that as like a holy grail moment of finding rest. It's that retreat. So it can be with people or without people, but the idea is I'm not needed right now. They don't need anything other than for me to be myself. And that all can bring life back to my creativity.
That makes sense. Like if you feel that pressure of like having to put out something and having to perform, then it would make sense that when that pressure is removed, then like it kind of like breathes life back into your creativity.
Absolutely. And also just finding people to jam out in creative moments is cool. Like, yo, did you hear that bar? Oh, the way that melody hits, or this worship song just slayed me. Like whatever it might be, that stuff. I love geeking out about that. That gives me life too.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Holla!
Holla!
Well, what revives your creativity?
I'm a huge people person, and just being with people, seeing people who are creating things, that's definitely a huge thing that revives. Like the Lord can put things in me, like I'll have like random thoughts of, writing something, or, that definitely does it. But actually what I love what Isaiah said about removing yourself from where there's a lot of expectation. Because I found, especially in the last few years, being a worship leader, a lot of the energy, it feels like creative energy, but it really is going a lot into, like, I'm going to do this for this purpose.
Right.
It's there, like having the purpose for it, kind of takes away a little bit from it. It feeds it some, and, there's some aspects to it, but, definitely if I feel like, like, for example, if I'm practicing a song for Sunday morning, like that doesn't feel the same, as creating. So if I can kind of take that same energy, even like in the same time I'm practicing, and, just like take a few minutes to let that kind of push me to like, okay, now what am I doing just for me, like this,
That's good.
For self-care, whatever it is, but that's something. But like people's probably number one, being around creative people. And the funny thing is, like I like very, very rarely like collaborate with people or like ask people for like, like to work together. But it, like being around people and like that definitely makes me think, oh gosh, I gotta get back in this. I gotta go I got to go find like a, quiet spot and, play a Disney song or something like that.
That's
cool. That's cool. All right. So we have made it to the last question. We've heard a lot of really intriguing things about like your creative process and how you relate to creativity through your type. And my hope is that other people who do identify as twos, or people who know twos, might see this video and be inspired and be like, wow, like I relate to what Isaiah was saying or what Paul or Siobhan was saying. And so if you could have one thing that you could say to encourage another creative who is a type 2, what would you say to them?
Yeah.
Siobhan?
So the words that like come to mind are, you're worth it.
It's good.
You're worth it. And to give yourself permission to, like, I just bless you to create, and like, yeah, and kind of like what I said earlier, like the Lord wants you to use your voice more than you do.
Yeah.
So like, if you need that motivation, like let him motivate you in that way. Like he loves to hear you create. He loves to see, like he loves when you express yourself with the gifts that he's given you. And it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, that's good. Isaiah?
Yeah, I'd just say, I got to make it rhyme. But I think for twos, the key to creativity is to just be. And I think like that is big for me. And I think it'll be big for other twos as well, because we're so concerned about being this for someone else or being that for someone else because we feel we are expected to. But the real good stuff starts to flow when you just are you. You're just willing to be. The Lord does a lot of good stuff, and that creativity will blow your mind, I think.
That's good.
Yeah.
Paul?
It's good. Well, I already answered this in our group chat, so I'm just going to read what I wrote. All right. So creativity is part of your self-care. So find what outlets of creativity feed your soul.
Nice.
Don't neglect it.
Wow.
It's facts.
It's twos go to 4 in security. And, a big part of the 4 is expression and creative outlet. And I think we look at it as like a, it's like dessert, we're like, oh, this is like a fun thing I get to do at the end of the day, and it really gets like pushed all the way back. And it's not like it's a part of who you are. It's a hugely important part of who you are. And if you're neglecting it, then other parts of your life are going to suffer for sure. And you're neglecting a part. It's a vegetable. It's not a dessert. You need to include it in your diet.
Wow, that's good. That's good. I like
good stuff.
Pastor
That was fire.
Paul. Pastor
That was fire.
It's the main dish, not the dessert.
Yes.
Let's go.
100%.
Yeah. So to wrap that up in one line, I would say like, you're worth it. Take care of yourself and be yourself is what you want these.
That's it. Perfect.
Other creatives to hear. That's good. Well, that's
okay, Manny. Okay, bro.
That's our time for today. Thank you so much for setting apart time to do this. Thank you. And so this has been great, and I appreciate all of you.